got this. I got this. I have this.
You don't have to write sentences, just kind of write, whatever your thoughts are about it.
I completely forgot about it though. My dad told me like when he got home, and I was like really tired. I thought I just completely forgot that it existed. I read pages of the other book.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right. Everything all right. All right, let me start by just reading a little bit of the first chapter, just so you can kind of hear neighbor Rosicky, Mr. Rosicky, kind of hear him and what he talks about. When Dr. Burley told neighbor Rosicky he had a bad heart, Rosicky protested. So, no, I guess my heart was always pretty good. You got a little asthma, maybe. Just off a short breath when I was pitching hay last summer, that's all. Well, now, Rosicky, if you know more about it than I do, why did you come to me for it? It's your heart that makes you short of breath, I tell you. You're 65 years old. You've always worked hard and your heart is tired. You got to be careful from now on. You can't do heavy work anymore. You got 5 boys at home will do it for you. The old farmer looked up at the doctor with a gleam of amusement in his eyes, his queer, triangular-shaped eyes. His eyes were large and lively, but the lids were caught up in the middle in a curious way. You ever seen an old man whose eyelids are almost a triangle point? He's just like smiling and laughing and it's kind of pointy.
My dad?
I don't know.
Don't ever tell my dad I said that. He's an old man.
My grandpa.
And is he like that? Yeah, I can picture it. He did not look like a sick man. His brown face was creased, but not wrinkled. He had a ruddy means like a reddish blood in the face where it's kind of splotchy, you know. It just means that he's, it means that blood is getting pumped to his face, which is a good thing. If you ever get like rosy cheeks, sometimes they're not just like a perfect soft pink like a very dainty girl. But it's more like if you ever get embarrassed, then it becomes red, but it's not so like of a flat soft color. It's more of like a splotchy red. You ever feel that color? Or like sometimes there's just older men who just not always old, but like I'm thinking of my father-in-law. He's got a very ruddy complexion where it's just a little more reddish and it's just kind of splotchy and not like a skin deformation or something, but it's just a matter of the blood being there at that moment and more often. Okay, that's what it's describing. Let's get down. Well, I guess you ain't got no pills for a bad heart, Dr. Ed. I guess the only thing is for me to get a new one. Dr. Burley swung around in his desk chair and frowned at the old farmer. I think if I were you, I'd take a little more care of the old one. So, this is Rosicky. This is who he's at. And what I want to start with is, I guess a little bit of history. This is taking place in Kansas, Nebraska. Yeah, Nebraska. Thank you. And there's a big Bohemian immigration group. People that moved and immigrated from Bohemia. Anybody know where Bohemia is now?
It's the Czech Republic now.
Yes, the Czech Republic. So, what is the Czech Republic? It used to be It used to be Czechoslovakia, and then it became the Czech Republic and the Slovakia. Okay, they split. Before that, it was Bohemia. Okay, so these immigrants from Bohemia, before it was even Czech, before it was Czechoslovakia, was Bohemia, or at least that region. And these people moved from here. So think, honestly, that region of Eastern Europe is very similar to the country life that a lot of people live here in the farmland. Obviously, there's going to be major differences. but they live off the land. They live hard work. Their winter weather seasons are very similar to what Nebraska would be. Kind of like ours, but our winters are shorter because we're a little further south, okay? So think colder winters, but not like northern Michigan. Think plains, lots of wind, but there's some rolling hills. There's not many mountains. So in some ways, like Kentucky, where we have rolling hills, but the rolling hills are a little more like broad. Our rolling hills are a little closer together, but they're still not mountains. Okay. So there's a lot of similarities there. And this guy moved from a city. Well, he immigrated to America, and then he moved to a city, and then he moved out of the city to the farm. Okay. So let me hear your thoughts. Anybody have any thoughts? What did you think? Tice, I know you really liked it. You go first.
I love it. It was good. He dies. He was good.
Yeah, you really wanted to blow that.
I haven't read it. Dang it.
Yeah, you haven't read it. We can talk about spoilers now. Go ahead.
I liked it. It said he died, and I got a little confused.
Okay.
Because it's just so many, like, just some stories from here to there.
Yes. Yeah. What did you guys think of that? Like, so it started with neighbor Rosicky in the doctor's office, and then it jumped to the past when the doctor was a little younger and was talking with neighbor Rosicky and his family, and you kind of got to know Mary, his wife, the neighbor Rosicky's wife, a little more there, which gives you, by way of association, tells you something about neighbor Rosicky. And then it jumps back up, and it jumps back to when neighbor Rosicky was younger, and it jumps back to the present day. There's a lot of jumping. So you didn't like that. That was confusing. Okay, what else did you guys think of that?
So I kind of liked how it was like kind of confusing because it kept me like focused on it, because like if it wasn't confusing, then I wouldn't have paid as much attention to the book. I would have just been reading it and not reading it.
Yeah, we just kind of get thinking about other stuff, and you're still reading it.
The age difference, I don't know, that was a little crazy to me.
What age difference?
15 years.
Between Mary?
Yeah, I guess it's not so bad, but I don't know, it just seemed
One of my brothers is 6 years.
When I lived in Eastern Europe, I had friends where the age difference was 15 years. Some of them, the man was 15 years older. Some of them, the woman was 15 years older than me. I think that was like super weird, personally. I don't know, maybe it's just like a European thing where it's kind of like, this is just normal. It's just.
Also, there was a quote in there.
Yeah, what's a quote?
I loved when it said, maybe you couldn't enjoy your life and put it into the bank too.
That was a good one.
I liked that too. So.
Yeah. Proverbs says to not work so much and overwork yourself for the sake of money, right? I think it's a similar principle that they're trying to hit at. Good. What else? What else do you guys have thoughts on?
I guess for me, it just felt like it was missing something.
Was it missing something?
I know Isaac hates people, but
It's okay. Try to describe what you think was missing.
I don't know. Like it just felt like it was like if
Like
you
magic
took
and
a-
swords? Like what was?
Like if you read a book, but you took out like the introduction, conclusion, just kind of like started reading the middle of it.
Okay.
Like it just felt like it was just missing parts.
It was very quick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was very short.
Just felt, I don't know, just felt like they could like the detail and like this stuff. How it kind of just jumps. It felt like it was just missing parts of the story.
You feel like there was lacking character development then?
Yeah, or just like it's just like incomplete.
Okay.
Have you heard of the word short story?
Have you heard of the word that they use? You cut up and it makes you confused?
It's a tiny story.
Yeah.
I'm liking it so far.
You're reading it right now?
Right now.
Come on, Riley.
But I'm on the 5th page.
That's quick.
That's quick.
Yeah, Lily.
So also, I couldn't like figure out the theme for some reason. Like I was
The what?
Like the theme, like what they were trying to tell.
Oh, that's
Like,
exactly what I'm gonna get
lesson
into.
They were trying to teach, that was something that just, I don't know, felt like that was missing, so.
Okay, it's not missing. It's there. Okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't figure it out.
That's good. Let's talk about that. What are some themes that you guys felt like? When I say themes, what I'm talking about is a reoccurring idea, but it might reoccur in like different scenarios. But basically, like one kind of idea that appears throughout that the author seems to think, I want to try to communicate this idea in this story, and so I'm going to make it appear multiple times, right? Anything like that. What do you guys think? Yeah.
Well, for me,
Maxwell,
I
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I
Make sure
did
you-
see his neighbor Rosicky's compassion keep popping up.
Okay.
With him, when he was living in London, when he ate the turkey, he went out and got a new one because he felt sorry that he ate their turkey on them. And then, when he gave the car to his oldest son, so he and his wife could go into town to have some fun. While it was like the younger kids' turn to go into town,
Good. Are there any other times that you guys feel like he was really emphasized his compassion?
Well, there was when, the reason, right before he dies, really, whenever he goes out to do some work on his son's property and some of his, picking up all the thorns and such that would take root and ruin the crops, just going out of his way to take care of something that didn't necessarily need to be addressed. But
You can kind of also see how he doesn't want to be useless, just sit around the house doing nothing either.
Yeah.
The doctor said he should.
Yeah, when the doctor was like, you just need to sit around the house. If I had a wife like you, then I'd want to be there all the time. And he's like, the house ain't no place for a man.
Ain't no man needed no woman yet.
Yeah. Lily, you were going to say something?
No, I was gonna basically say that he said he kept going out and working, even though he knew that he probably shouldn't, but he kept working, and that was just really, I don't know, nice of him.
Admirable?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
admire him for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay, I wrote a paper on this, and basically what I'm going to do is read my paper, but I'm going to read it like I'm talking, not like I'm just reading a paper. I'll do my best. But it's a very short paper. It's like 1.5, and then we can discuss the ideas in that, okay? So, it's called Family Values. So I wrote this, and I really picked up on the contrast the author was writing of neighbor Rosicky's family values, how he prioritized his family, and how his son, who was getting married to Polly, was really struggling with some of those same principles and applying them, and his struggle with it created conflict, right? So they were kind of like, there's a lot of tension there about him wanting to go make money in the city, and his father was like, but it's better to rely on your family, but the son was like, I really want to be independent, right? So there's a lot of tension there. Let's talk about that. So let's see, Cather, Willa Cather is the name of the author, okay? If you want to take notes, it'd probably be good to take notes on what I say. Cather spent time in both the rural country and the urban city as a person, as the author. She spent time in both the rural country and in the urban city, coming away with experiences that enabled her to write accurately of the benefits and disadvantages of each locale. Willa Cather's Neighbor Rosicky, though short, is full of themes worthy of analysis, leading in multiple directions that elaborate on those advantages and disadvantages of each location, whether city or country. What are the advantages to both? And in Neighbor Rosicky, there's a lot there you can talk about, okay? But one of those that appears in more than one of her works is this theme of family values. In her short story, the conflict between Rudolph and Anton coming to a head and the resolution of that crisis being suspended until Polly overcomes her aversion to marrying into a foreign family to support these family values. So let's talk about how Rudolph and Anton, they were kind of, there's a lot of tension there, and they did resolve it, but there was a moment that was kind of like anticlimactic where they resolved it. And then the climax, the emotional punch of it being resolved actually comes later. She separates those. Usually if there's a tension and it's coming to a head and it builds to a point that we call the climax, okay? But the resolution of that conflict happens, but the climax is postponed in the story, okay? So let's talk about that. So the terms of their conflict between Rudolph and Anton, terms of the conflict between them coming to a head support the theme of family values because Anton's opinion of success differs from his son's, okay? So neighbor Rosicky, Yeah, Rudolph is his son. And he and his son have different opinions of what success looks like. So, but by the end, that conflict is resolved, and the family they stay together and they're not divided. Okay, so it's kind of a conflict that has the potential to divide the family, and that's what Anton is really afraid of happening. He's trying to keep the family together, and he doesn't want that tension to split the family apart. So, Anton believes that the best thing for his family is what? What would you guys say he believes the most important thing for his family is?
To be close together.
Yes. What would you guys say Rudolph thinks is the most important thing for his family? Which is, at this point, is just Rudolph and Polly, right? Isaac?
I would think to be able to make a good enough money and buy any necessary needs.
Yes. You got something, Dad?
Yes. So I think that so you shouldn't be away from your family until you have enough money to be independent. Because most of my brothers are not far away from me.
Right. So when you talk about independence like that, how much money? Because at some point you have to have enough money to be independent, but you can't just have money, you also have to have income, right? And it's that income that he is really depending on. And so what Anton is saying is more important than the amount of income that you make is the family around you to support you. And Rudolph says, I need to be independent, leave and cleave. I'm my own man. We're married. We are our own separate unit. That's your family. This is my family. And that's different because Anton's like, well, this is my family and you're part of my family and you're your own family. I'm not saying you're not, but do you see the tension there? That's what's going on, which is like, super relevant. So, the terms of the conflict. So that they have different opinions of what success is, and by the end, they're in agreement. Okay. Neighbor Rosicky believes that the best thing for his family is the American dream of familial self-sufficiency. So when we think of what is the American dream, we think often independence, being able to run your own business, things like that. Self-reliance. I'm not relying on the government. I have my own homestead, and I can build things myself because I am self-dependent. Okay, but Rosicky takes that American dream and he rephrases it as independence on the family, right? So not just individual independence, but independence on each other within a family, which is a little different, okay? So that's what neighbor Rosicky thinks is success, is a peaceful family that's relying on each other. He has experiential knowledge of the evil that one faces in the city, which is where Rudolph would go to provide financially, like you said, for his, by any means necessary, which means I'll go to the city even. But Anton knows that that's not good. He says he believes that in the city, all the foulness and misery and brutality of your neighbors was part of your life because they're your neighbors. And in that order, in order to provide the best life for his family, it's not financial sustenance by any means. Instead, he believes that they must avoid being forced to live in the city. What's best for your family? Financial success by any means, or less financial success and not being in the city where the foulness of your neighbor is your life too?
It would be less.
Right. So my point here is not to say you shouldn't go to the city. I'm explaining their ideas and where the conflict is. And you can see that the wisdom in what Anton is trying to say, but you can also see the pull that Rudolph he wants to provide for his family, which is a good desire. So Anton's selfless actions are motivated by a desire to exemplify prioritizing his family. So we've said that he is compassionate, he's selfless, and it's because he's prioritizing his family over himself. He worries that Rudolph will move his new small family back to the city where, he says, to be a landless man, to not own your own land, is to be a slave, to be nothing. That's what he thinks of that. Though Rosicky is a typical American, hardworking, self-sufficient American, he really is that only for the sake of his family. And that's a difference there. Normally the American dream is, I'm going to push off other people to be independent. But Rosicky says, I'm going to be independent for the sake of my family, which is different. You guys see that difference? Okay. So in the context of defining Rosicky as an archetype American male, like the epitome of what American independence looks like, he works a productive farm as opposed to working in a factory. And an author says that Rosicky represents what I consider to be a differently motivated producing body. Rather than farming in order to sell, Rosicky and Mary farm in order to support their children. That's their central motivation. Therefore, distinct from simple self-sufficiency, pure independence, Anton's priority is actually familial self-sufficiency. He wants his family to be independent of the city, or instead of one man being independent to prove he's a man. Anton's priority is familial self-sufficiency, where he provides for himself and his family by relying upon and staying close to his extended family. In order to do this well, he relies on his family. And he wants Rudolph to understand that. It's not really about Anton keeping control over his new son's marriage. Okay? Rudolph, however, questions his father's belief and wonders if monetary success is not more important for his new life, for his new wife, than staying near and relying upon his extended family. So Rudolph's impatient outlook on the life of a farmer is what causes him to question his father's opinion. But truly, why does he question his father's opinion? What do you guys think? Why does Rudolph question his dad's opinion?
Well, first of all, like, it talks about, like, in the story itself, how farming so far hasn't gotten him very far, and how all of his father's advice hasn't seemed to have gotten him in a place where he feels he should be at the time.
Okay.
And so maybe just thinking that using other means to get what he needs would be necessary if what he's doing is not working.
Okay.
So he might question his father's opinion because he's never known anything else like his father has. Like his father has been in the city, he knows the evil of other people, but his son doesn't. So he doesn't know what it's like, so he might think it's better, and he might question it.
So grass is greener on the other side because he's never been there.
Yeah, he hasn't experienced.
That's a great point. In other words, he's lacking experience. What do we call that? When someone younger lacks experience and disregards the older, wiser, and more full experience of a wiser older man. What do we call that?
Idiots.
What?
Idiots.
Stupidity.
Stupidity is a better word.
Ignorance.
What?
Naive.
Naive is closer, yes.
That's smart.
What?
That's
Not
smart.
It's called ignorance, which simply means lacking knowledge, right? If you are ignorant, it doesn't mean you're stupid, it just means that you don't know the information you need to know. Okay? So for example, if you don't know that you are not supposed to drive over the speed limit, or let's say you're driving 70 miles an hour down the highway and the speed limit is 55, but you never saw a sign, you are ignorant. You don't know that it's 55. And when the policeman pulls you over, are you able to say, "Oh, sorry, sir, I just didn't know"? No, your ignorance does not constitute an excuse. Okay? So ignorance is one. He just simply doesn't have the experience, like you said. But secondly, he doesn't admit that he's ignorant. Right? You can be ignorant and know it. And that's better than being ignorant and thinking you're not. Right? And so he is saying, I'm not ignorant, when he is. And that's prideful. Right? So he is ignorant and immature, is what he is. You can be mature and ignorant and admit it and just be like, I need to rely on these people's advice. I'm going to get a lot of advice, and I'm going to make the best decision I can. But if you're like, no, I'm just going to be stubborn and do what I want in spite of the advice from wise people around me because I know better, this is my family, that's not, no bueno. Okay? So, that's what he's doing. He is ignorant and he is immature. So Rudolph's impatient outlook on farming causes him to question his father's opinion, but truly it's his youth and immaturity that places him at the age where life decisions are made, but he lacks the experience to fully process what is best for his family. Right? So think maybe like some of you like Tice have older brothers who are getting married, and you might think like, well, you might not, but the older brothers might think, oh my gosh, they're so young, I can't believe that they're getting married at that age and blah, blah, blah. They don't know this and that. Well, there's some truth in that. They don't know.
All of you didn't.
Yeah. There's some truth in that they don't know a lot of things that you would want them to know, right? So he lacks that experience that he needs to fully process it. And that's simply because he's young. For Anton and Mary Rosicky, family is the most important part of their lives and the center of their social structure. But the social structure of the greater Rosicky family is in danger of falling apart, as Rudolph and Polly internally debate, each of them for their own reasons, whether moving to the city is better for them or not. Okay? The crisis is the moment at which the ideas, the ideological tension between what Rudolph and Anton both think are best. The crisis is when those tensions come to a head. The point at which the opposing forces create a conflict that interlocked in the decisive action that will turn the plot. What direction is this going to go? Is the family going to divide or unify? Whose opinion is going to change? Right? That's the question. Though this is the moment that the conflicting forces interlock, the author suspends the resolution. So it really comes to a head, but it doesn't climax to a great, satisfactory resolution where you feel better about it. The main conflict of the story is between Anton and Rudolph. However, a second conflict is between the Czech family and the American daughter-in-law. Conflicting cultures, right? So Cather inconspicuously resolves the conflicts at the same time. So we have two conflicts. One is father-son and ideas of provision versus relying on family. And the other one is the whole Czech family stressing about an American daughter-in-law who doesn't get the culture. And she is stressed out by the culture differences as well. She's major stressed. So the author resolves both of these conflicts at the same time when she reveals Polly's mental shift. So when running home in the cold, after Anton shares the story of his life prior to becoming a father, right? So he goes back, tells about when he was in the city and his horrible experiences that drove him to come out, and he shares that with Polly. Rudolph and Polly then have a short conversation, and that conversation is vital. It's super important. It's critical to the resolution of these conflicts. Okay? Cather writes, that night, Rudolph's heart leaped for joy when Polly said she thought they might have his family come over for supper on New Year's Eve. Let's get a nice supper and not let your mother help at all. Make her be company for once. That would be lovely of you, Polly, he said humbly. It is this conversation that shows clearly that Anton's stories have helped Polly overcome her aversion to the Czech family. All of a sudden she could relate, right? She was able to connect because they're not just some foreign family that she doesn't get. There's a history of human experience that she can relate to. Though that conflict is resolved, that's one. What was the second conflict?
Father-son.
Father-son. Though the Polly and Czech family culture conflict is resolved, Cather saves the climax for the father-son conflict for later, for when Anton's heart attack threatens his life in order to support the theme of family values. Remember, again, I think she's writing this whole thing, at least one purpose, is to really show that family values, what are family values, what should they be, what's the right family value. That's what she's trying to teach her. Anton's heart attack when he is with Polly provides an opportunity to reveal that Polly has previously shifted her view of her positions in the family. Though Cather stated earlier that Polly never called him father, once he shared those stories with her and she connected with him, and then his life was threatened, She does call Mr. Rosicky father for the first time when he has his first heart attack. Anton can die in peace now because he fears for the greater Rosicky family, and if she is calling him father, that's a sign that it's becoming unified and not divided. Okay? So Anton can die in peace because his fears of the greater Rosicky family being separated are put to rest. And even he has the joy of a new addition to the family expected to come in the following months because Polly's pregnant. Okay? Spoiler alert. Sorry. Polly's pregnant. So the plot line for both Rudolph's conflict with his father and Polly's conflict with the greater family provides tension throughout the story, right? However, Cather provides a very satisfactory resolution of those conflicts that supports the theme of family values, and it's seen in more than just the conflict. Cather's use of Anton's stories from when he worked in the city without a family, Anton's selfless acts motivated by a love for his family, and Anton's desire for his family to provide for themselves, right? He's not telling Rudolph, let me provide for you. He's saying, let me help you provide for yourself, rather than you go off and do it all on your own, where your neighbors are wicked and blah, blah, blah. Anton's desire is for his family to provide for themselves after he's gone by relying on each other. All of that supports a theme of family values. So what's the theme? I think, well, there's more than one, but a major one is family values. Okay? You guys got that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any questions or thoughts on that, on family values? You disagree at all? You're not allowed to disagree.
If I disagree, my brothers
Then
will
I do
county.
not.
What?
If I disagree, my mom will tell my brothers to county and they would do it. That's the disability of having
Okay.
older brothers.
Yeah, so that's our lit lecture. Okay, so what we'll do is next week we have a test on the grammar and the story and what I just talked about. Okay, yeah, and then the week after that we'll start a new unit, which is Swiss Family Robinson.
Yes!
Okay,
Let's go!
I have a PDF of that. How many of you have access to a physical book? A physical book.
We can probably get one.
Yeah.
Okay, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you don't think you have access to a physical book. Okay, well I have, the library. You should be able to find that book in the library. Just make sure you get the unabridged. Okay.
Unabridged.
Yeah, which means not cut short.
Ah.
Right. An abridged version is a version of a book where they take out a bunch of stuff to make it easier to read. And I'm trying to give you the hard stuff.
So Isaac, it's probably stuff you normally read.
No, actually, to be honest, often they take stuff out. I mean, if they're taking stuff out, what are they going to take out? God. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to talk about. So.
What's next? Robinson's
That's
Crusoe?
No, after that is going to be Until We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, which I also have a PDF of, if you can't get a physical book.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that's just going to be the December reading when we're out of class. You got to finish that.
We're
How
gonna
much
read.
would it cost to
Wait,
get
I've
one?
already been reading.
To get what?
Yeah, Swiss Family Robinson.
Take a look.
Unabridged.
Well, the library, we have it.
I'm trying to get one.
I also have the audiobook
You
of
know,
Swiss Family
because you heard
Robinson.
that stuff at the
Sorry,
library.
cheating.
You cheater.
I don't think
You know I can throw this at you. You know I can throw my
I can
knife
throw
at
you
you.
like a
You know I can throw
$15. You get $15.
It's not $100.
What? On Amazon?
Yeah, $15. Swiss Family Robinson Penguin Classics. $15.
Man, they lied to me,
Really?
Joe. Amazon. Now
On purpose.
Okay. Anybody have any other final thoughts on neighbor Rosicky?
No, sir.
he was a good man.
He was. That's one of my favorite short stories. Now she's gonna go home and read it and cry her eyes out.
That is me though. I cry a lot.